Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Hopefully, my voice is loud and clear. Okay. The title of tonight's episode is Tears That Fell Before You Did. And I don't mean specifically you who are listening. I mean, just an idea that sometimes in life we find ourselves in moments where hopelessness or certain the inner realms are less efficient than the outer realms. And when your attention is on the outer realm, on the inner realms, then you get held by it. You want the world to kind of become like how you see, how you see things only. Just a second, folks. Just waiting for something to load. Okay. Rabindranath Tagore has this quote where he says you cannot cross the sea by merely staring at it. And Shakespeare has this kind of quote with a similar parallel sort of meaning where he says, "A ship can sit at harbor, but that's not what ships are made for." And so when we look at human design, I find the question may come to certain human beings, what is this made for? And then the attention from the self moves on to the world, and that's where really these talks that I'm giving are being held. At a moment, at a state of mind where at a state of mind where the attention is moving from the self to the world. And so the simultaneity of the world that is moving you and the self that is moving the world is found and felt. The inner realms, I've made the point that it appears in other talks that it appears as a field, as an unknown field. I consider this unknown field to be the source of innovation, by the way, the source of everything. That means knowledge is kind of the effect and the cause is unknown, and humanity's history is like a dream where its beginning and its end is blurry. I've had certain moments where, of course, human beings, they identify with their environment. And when certain things in their environment move away, it's as if, think of it this way, you wake up throughout the day, your day is contained in some sort of subjective photo, subjective meaning, subjective layout. Now, this layout is you're identifying with what is in your space of awareness, literally as if you're a candle in a dark room and your perception is lighting the room, you know? And so things in this room come and go. Some of these things you can choose with your free will to change. Some things you can't. It's as if like I've had so many times where I've given talks in the street and like a car just put the guy put the thing on the gas pedal. And it was like I couldn't avoid that noise. At most, I could just turn my head so it doesn't the direction of it. didn't destroy my own ears, but like, you know what I mean? It's like certain things happen where we have a sort of expectation, and certain things happen unexpected. The unexpected, if you pay attention, you see all the people in the self-help industry, they are trying to make the person be able to expect the unexpected. It's all attempts at trying to expect the unexpected, but the unexpected is the unexpected, and that's the beauty of it. Some things in life, it's very beautiful when you get to know it, you know. But some things in life, they are beautiful as they remain unknown, do you know? And that is the case. Some things in life, I can say that my attention in sincere interest to pursue further was inefficient. You know, like it's. I think life is not just about moving as atoms. It is also being conscious of a subjective process that is going on. It's as if like our objective biological existence is being moved by rivers of intelligence. Now, this intelligence, what it is, what the identification of an atom with a thought is, like all of that, I find it moves beyond the language threshold simply because it becomes instantaneous. That means you're wondering about the cause and effect of two different dimensions, and you were under the impression that there was one dimension, it was caused, its effect happened, and then that effect caused another dimension, and then its effect happened. But this is a sort of simultaneity where you're seeing the cause of two dimensions as the same. So we have this idea that like the color spectrum, the Pink Floyd album cover, the light goes into the prism and it comes out as the color spectrum, the light beam. So we separate dimensions as if they're houses, they're neighbors. The colors in the color spectrum, they're like neighbors. Do you see? But the situation is very different because it's an intersection of dimensions. That means dimensions are not just parallel, they are also horizontal to one another. And what that means is that means chaos and order is like a 90-degree angle where your present moment is the center of it. Okay? The central point that's connecting the two lines. So that's what I'm trying to say, that we are moving into a kind of era where our comprehension of our own story, or even our sorrow of our own story, or even certain programs of hopelessness that may find the mind, it's as if it's like the comprehension of the dimensions as it becomes more, it's like as our understanding of dimensions accelerates, so do the edges of our narratives as human beings. You know, right now I consider a technology that everybody has access to and is free of charge is the technology I find of the phenomena of imagination, and how human beings have a sophisticated use and awareness to language. It's like out of all the species on this earth, we see very clearly way more. Do you know? And it doesn't mean we're aware of way more, you know? We can comprehend, and it's kind of strange, you know? I remember when I was younger, you know, there was some person that was kind of like that we were sharing stories. It wasn't just me. Like I was part of a gathering of like friends. This is me, maybe like 14. You know, being in some sort of family gathering. You know, and it's like the cousins are sharing stories and whatnot with one another. You know, before social media, there was a kind of excitement to direct communication. Do you know, it's like, I'm telling you, in my youth, I was very shy. Shyness is missing out on like so much of life unnecessarily, you know? It's like, it's like accepting a defeat without trying, you know? But anyways, there were stories of how animals had a sensitivity to not just earthquakes, but to maybe send different dimensional entities or something like that. right? And I always thought, what if that was the case? Just I was kind of like entertaining the idea, and I was like, all right, let's see if that's the case. What would that imply? That means it's like how hilarious. The cat sees like a different dimensional being. Let's say there was an alien in your living room, playfully, and or this extraterrestrial kind of being. Your cat or your dog saw it. Your cat and dog started to freak out. you know But you saw that the cat and the dog couldn't comprehend. Do you know? And we are just associating with the visible, observable sense of our universe. For us, a different dimensional being, we just call it imagination. Do you know how many things that imagination is like a coin flip? I find we don't know. It's like putting our hand into a box as empty as the universe, and wondering what sort of idea is born as a universe of a context in a moment. So I was like, animals, they have more awareness in that case, but they don't have more comprehension. Human beings have more comprehension and less awareness. It doesn't mean less. They're definitely, just think of it this way: every species has an example of a member of its civilization that is functioning at the most inefficient, and has an example of a member of its civilization, a member of its species that is efficient. That means in nature there is an incredibly, industrious lion, and there's an incredible lazy lion. And it's the will of continuity. And the will of continuity, once it's like pretty much in this life, if you function as an idea, as like an egoic construct, or through a sort of egoic vehicle, the idea of the self, that idea of self at most can become maxed out effort, and that's going to become like the authorization of hope, a sort of sense of feeling you deserve. You tried your best. It's like, what else could you do? And that's a sort of way where the egoic construct reaches the void, where it just goes full out, and then at the end, whatever happens, happens. You know? Now, I feel that the moment a sophistication of dimensions is introduced, we suddenly feel we know less. It's kind of like how Socrates said, the only true wisdom or knowledge is to know that you know nothing. Why did he say that? Because the universe is very vast, very vast. And in this vastness, there is a sort of, first of all, not enough lifetime to even measure or index the whole cosmos to attain sort of certainty. Everything that man has, because we are limited to our planet. Think about it. Do you know how many galaxies there are? In the local group. So it's one of those things where I feel like the inner realms can be used like a shield and a sword. And what that means is, it's like, in a strange way, the free will we have is like we change the temperature where thoughts are, the particles are moving. It's like, as the temperature increases, the particles move faster, move quicker. So it's kind of like when the person's conscious attention to their subjective realm amplifies or increases or becomes more single pointed, then I find what happens is, it's like suddenly your state of ideological constitution, it changes into, like, for example, if it was water, suddenly it's become steam. It becomes a sort of gas state, right? And a gas state of consciousness is non-dual. It's all those people in the world who feel there's a oneness before there was duality, so everybody is already one, right? I'm telling you, when you go look at ideologies and how thoughts developed in history, even their greatest efforts eventually would fall into certain simple generalizations, because there are certain commonalities that can't be certain things in this life you can touch it, but still nothing happens. That means it's like the moment is sometimes like your mind. Let me say it like this, like honestly, guys, I don't know how to say it. I got a bit distracted, but ultimately, I'm feeling we as human beings, light enter our eyes, it translates into knowledge. Knowledge looks at the unknown. It's an effort again upon the unknown. As it's an effort upon the unknown, it comprehends the unknown, its knowledge transforms. That means you may have your whole life treated yourself like a photo album. You might have treated your mind like a photo album, as if like you feel like if somebody asked you who are you and you wrote a sentence, and that if that person asked you are you this sentence, you'd be like you might say yes, but you'd see no man, no I don't want to say it like that, no living being, no living conscious being. Uh, excuse me, no living conscious being can be a thought. Thoughts come and go. In deep sleep, are you a thought? No, but you still exist. So there's existence prior to thought. That pre existence of your own experience before the thought upon your experience or the thought containing the moment as an experience, there is a superiority there. It's as if just like how you enter a room and there's a senior person there, it's automatically your mind has to move into gentler archetypes and more compassionate archetypes. You know, it's as if like a way I've realized. I think it's kind of interesting. I think this helps kind of communication in general among people. Is that when you see a person, you wonder if you were looking through their eyes, what would be best for them. That means you see the mind is so advanced that even though in deep sleep there's no thought, there's presence prior to personality, and there's a unwavering presence. When you become conscious of that rhythm, it's like a heartbeat that it's the heartbeat of the cosmos that has never stopped, regardless of how the face of man has changed throughout the eons. You know, there is this view that everything, it's as if when you kind of look at even the Big Bang, you know, and the cosmic inflation that took place in like less than a second, all the stuff appeared, you know? It's as if how can I say it? It's as if from a microcosmic condition, a macrocosmic condition projected out, and that cosmic condition became an unconditional condition for the conscious microcosm within it. And I thought that it's like, you know how man has created in ancient times, you see men spoke to the gods. Now it's as if like when Friedrich Nietzsche was such an incredible writer. That means like I'm telling you, there's so many people I admire just for their writing style, the way the concepts, the architecture of their inner realms. Like Friedrich Nietzsche is definitely, um, he said God is dead and man killed him. Friedrich Nietzsche, this German philosopher, said that. And I wondered why. Why did man kill God? Do you know? And it would be even savage because even from a secular perspective, you're killing your own creation. Why would man kill his own creation? Do you know? As if like we protect children, but we do not protect ideology. So you see, we can totally understand universal psychology, just how people on the planet, life is appearing to them as a set of circumstances where their interpretation as an energetic response throughout the day to the living um, format is like in some it's people are piloting their attention at different intensities. Right now as I'm speaking, there's probably like an astronaut, you know, looking outside of a space station window. You know, so many dimensions coexist. It's as if the gods and man, in as the more man thinks he's man, the more there will be gods. The more man wonders where God came from, he will come to a moment before man where it was only the inconceivable God. And that means the concept of God doesn't exist even at that point, but it's still the source. So this can be a kind of very interesting philosophical debate, I think, for future generations. That uh, did the source of the universe, could it ever be conceived? Well, what that means is even if we could see it, could we put it into a concept? I feel many things transcend the language threshold. This concept uh, I've kind of developed where I suddenly realized like there are limits to language, and the limits to language can be surpassed. If we think it can't be surpassed, then it's as if like the inefficient self is one. There's the story of this tribal, I believe it's a Cherokee story, this Cherokee tribal leader. Back in the day, you know, all the tribal leaders have gathered around, and as they have gathered around, the grandson, the tribal leader, the one who everyone's come to his tribe, you know, for the meeting, all the tribal leaders are there. Right before he gives his speech to the tribal leaders, he suddenly sees his grandson running to him in the middle of this, oblivious of what his grandfather is doing, just playful and, you know, uh, like a young child, you know, oblivious young child, and the child runs and says, "Grandpa, Grandpa, tell me a story," you know, and the grandpa suddenly looks at it, the tribal leaders, and he kind of smiles at his grandson. And the first thing he does, check this out, he kneels down, takes one knee. What that what I mean by that is he gets on the level of the grandson, then speaks to him. So when he speaks, the grandson doesn't feel um, less, you know. The Cherokee elder, he says, the leader says, grandson, there are two wolves inside of you. And the grandson suddenly, he gets startled. It's like, whoa, there's two wolves inside of me? And then, he says these two wolves, one of them is darkness, one of them is the light. One of them is chaos, one of them is order. And as he's saying it, he knows he's the grandfather's so wise. He's giving the speech he wants to give, you know, in some sense through the talk, through the story. But so what he says, these two wolves are constantly fighting, and which one wins? The one you feed. Now this is very, very profound, because that means we are present in two dimensions rather than two dimensions being in one dimension. One dimension is in two dimensions. Two dimensions are simultaneously being in the same room. And I find it's always a fascinating endeavor to try to put dimensions into rooms of language. Language for me is the paint. Now, what the hand of the painter does is something else. Because life is a process. Your mind appears to you as a process. That means it's dynamic. And if you notice, the will of man is to move. That means that, believe it or not, a lot of it's not just health, it's even your mind as a human being, you require to move, right, throughout the day. But also there requires to be moments of, I say vacation, you take a vacation from the intensity of how the world is being marched at. Maybe like a short intensity. Think of it as like a warrior in a battlefield, and the battle's gone for many days, and they're taking breaks, like in the middle, and continuously fighting. The value of a human mind is its ability to direct itself. And Mr. Within is saying we are inevitably, I think it's just happening. It's like how the seed wasn't planted way before I was born. But it was like, the way I feel it's happening is that existence is shifting. And it's just like how people are getting to know more people. I feel like different dimensions are getting to know different dimensions. And there is a sort of choice, a sort of conscious will, as if, for example, you see person A and person B, or like, let's say you see two kids fighting, imagine like your youth or something. And so imagine you're a kid and you're fighting. And then at the same time as you and like as the kid are fighting with someone, in the macrocosms, gods the size of galaxies are like fighting. With their weapons, are like, they're throwing suns at each other. So I'm saying, like, it's a way of seeing the simultaneity, the sort of fractal echo of your archetype into the cosmic landscape, or as it becomes the cosmic landscape. I have, in my dreams, I have paid, like, some people in the New Age community, they are interested in lucid dreaming, astral travel, games in other dimensions. It's like, that's fine, with discretion. But it's like, the mind of man is an instrument best played at the honest tune. And the honest tune is where you feel the simultaneity of your heartbeat with how your heartbeat is, in some sense, like, check it out. It's like your heartbeat is influencing your psychology the same way our blinking is. Okay, and the same way light has kind of been, our planet has been getting a tan, you know, for eons, you know. Not eons, but you know what I mean. The thing is, like, in some of my dreams, I've experienced emotions. It's like what was interesting about the dream wasn't that I could only just move in the dream. I could only just direct have conscious control of the dream state, but it was like there were certain emotions of presences that I had no familiarity with. Okay, sorry guys. I hope a fortune finds me soon, but but anyways, I'll continue. Just pretty much. Um, in a dream, seeing a personality I've never seen before, an infusion. It's like I call it like an abomination of a familiar archetype. Do you know, as if like you see some phenomena in your dream state. Sorry guys, I have headphones on. This is just a second. What can be said? Sometimes you see things that are the unknown, and you get a new emotion. And it's like phenomenology is not just updating you, your engagement with it is like the infusion of like two different chemicals causing a chemical reaction, as if in every moment you exist as a being, you are some sort of energetic presence. This energetic presence is in a symbiosis with the energetic presence of the cosmos. And if you really become conscious of energy, that means, again, we're going uh, towards the language threshold. We're going toward reverse engineering duality into the singular void. It's a movement. That's what I'm saying, pretty much. Our mind is a movement. It can't be put into a photo of photo-like words, because every word there's an image of a world behind it, right? Like when somebody says apple, like you don't just see letters in your imagination. You see an image. Okay, so that means the mind has a sort of instant evocational ability. That means we hear certain sounds and it instantly influences our intelligence. You know, as if like the person suddenly hears a car honk and jumps into the air. Imagine scaring Superman and he just flies out of there, you know? Attention is really a gift. I think it's the only thing that probably, if it is to remain, it's the only thing. Like, obviously, the physical phenomena of the moment, it comes and goes, you know? Every person's body grows into, believe it or not, we're evolve, or the purpose of the body is to journey towards the void. The purpose of the mind will come to, of the conscious mind appears as kind of journeying towards the infinite. I mean, when I talk about advancement of civilization, because really, when it comes to knowledge, you look at things, it's just like man, we have selected a point in space and we're putting arrows to it, okay? And that's civilization. When I speak about advancement, like if anybody asks me, sometimes I thought, like I got a vision in the future, if somebody asked me like what my favorite word was, you know, I would say just advancement, you know, because when you look at that, it's the infinite, and you see they're both unknown. Unknown. The empty is unknown, and the infinite is unknown, and all our knowledge is oscillating in the linguistic simulation, oscillating in language, in the dualism of language, and that's causing the linguistic simulation. So it's kind of interesting because we can't say the mind is projecting itself, or let me say it like this. Let me say it, if we actually said the mind was a projector, okay, how is it projecting conscious meaning? And I think that's a fascinating question. How is the moment being meaningful to itself, being full of a sort of meaning, a sort of uh, color to the moment? You know, Marcus Aurelius said the soul has died with the color of its thoughts. So what that really means is like you are not you only, you are also what the environment is being. And that was something I kind of found contentment with early. That when you kind of look at nature, it was just like every child that's ever seen an action movie. It's like, yeah, there's suffering in this world. It's about, I think, more like intensity interpretation and intensity management, and then rhythmic abidance with what appears to be the most efficient vision of the clear mind. There was something that I would say was a gift that Tibetan Buddhism, the whole field, you can say, and also I gotta say a note that please forgive the disturbances in the talk. Hopefully, I'll be relocating soon. But unknown advancement of whatever that has an ability to be an effort here. You know, it's there are many moments in life where the person can get dishonored by nature. There was a time where I remember I remember like this was like before 2011. And uh, I remember that I saw, I think it was like a cat in like a yard, you know? And I looked at that cat and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be that guy who's gonna attempt like a telepathic communication with this cat, you know? My understanding of animals was so unrefined then, you know? But, and then I was, in my mind, I was saying nice things to the cat, and then the cat just stared at me, and I was like, right before I could say anything, the cat went away, and I was like, whoa, even animal, like the cat just dishonored me. It's like, that's the, it was like I could say in my life till 2011, I was born in 91. In 2011, till 2011, I felt I was in a sort of karmic cocoon dash quarantine. And that meant I kind of knew that there was more to see in life, but the access was kind of denied due in the certain storyline. Sometimes it's very incredible that any problem you have in your life, trust me, you might not be able to see the answer right away, but you can instantly see different angles to that problem. That means, it's like some person can see a problem and then think they don't have an answer to it and be like, this problem can never get solved because in this moment I couldn't see an answer. And then you suddenly see it's like they're just like how there are different human beings, different DNAs approaching the same global problems that affect all of us. It's like through a unity of the inspiration to live. I feel kind of like the mind of man will move towards an evolutionary return to a universal nature. Rumi has this quote where he says, what you seek is seeking you. And I was kind of like, as if like the seed is seeking the fruit and the fruit is seeking the seed. That means it's an inbuilt potential of perhaps an awareness that has, like you see, when the concept of divine is not just limited to religious ideology, by the way. There's, at least in my experience, the concept divine is really the novel entrance of a new domain of perception. And that novel entrance of a new domain of perception is incredible because just like you enter a jacuzzi, there's a shock factor, a subtle, depending on the temperature, shock factor. And so it's as if we have to pull our minds out of the darkness we have let them kind of bask in. Or let me say, in the darkness we have left them behind in. It's like, let me tell you, intelligence is about the more you care, the more the overall objective can be said to become more macro. So it's as if, like, imagine, I'll tell you this dog, and he has a perfect story that it shares this dog, and somebody comes up to dog, and he's in dog, and he's in philosophy, he's like the father of cynicism. He was like a very, like, he was a bit crazy, but he was very badass if you look at it as a philosopher now, you know. Diogenes, one day, someone comes up to him and says, "Hey, Diogenes," and Diogenes is like, "What's up?" And he says, "Diogenes, where are you from? Where are you a citizen of?" You know, like the guy's trying to befriend him. He's like, "Where are you from?" And Diogenes, he was so intense. He looks at him and kind of like Robert De Niro, is like, "Where am I from? Where am I from?" You talking to me? Diogenes says, "I am a citizen of the cosmopolites," and this sentence hits this man's ears hard. It hits his ears so hard, it's as if his mind hears what Diogenes said. Titanic is already sunk. Let's see how long the violinist's melody can go on. The candle wax melts. What is the purpose of consciousness when the biology, when stardust just becomes stardust again? It's as if we're like stardust hallucinating humanhood. Honestly, like, what else could a materialistic narrative be put into? We're particles moving and nothing means anything. But, or we can kind of see like, we are something. There is something here. There is some intelligence here. As Terence McKenna, so this scholar, said very incredibly, he said there's another tenant in the room of this universal sector, and that other tenant, Mr. Within finds, is actually the whole universe. But that I come from a school of thought different to others, that in some sense I feel that the soul doesn't have a personality. That means it's like only when you're not comfortable with the void you fear it. You fear anything really that you feel you can't endure through. You know, I chose this wallpaper because it was too incredible not to share. Um, the wallpaper, there was a tear. You see, there was a tear in the eye of the goddess, which is kind of nature, as if nature had a personality, it would be a sort of female grace, you know, feminine grace. And then you'd kind of see, of course, perhaps light is not just holding our world. It's just like the planet could be alive. Like, it's like, how can we even, it's like a very agnostic kind of resolution, really. I feel if we don't consider it alive, what do we get? Nothing. If we consider the planet alive, if human beings who walk around every day, if they had not just a relationship with matter, not just a relationship with living beings and people, but they had a relationship with a living moment, as if their whole moment was alive, not just what they saw in their moment. A certain aspect, a certain extraction of shape, because at the end of it, there is a chaotic emergence. Like, there was this story in Tibetan Buddhism from Guru Prasambhava where he had this assistant, this old lady for 80 years. She was like, and she was his assistant. And she came to Guru Prasambhava and said, I'm going to die soon. It's like, tell me something, what should, like, what, give me a teaching, something like that. And Guru Padmasambhava, I don't remember the details of it, but goes into this detailed description of how the elemental dimensions collapse into one another. And when I look at human understanding of elemental, it comes to shape and design and the geometry imposed upon atoms or waves or particles or any sort of meaning or line of thought drawn in the void. It's just that there is a life here that is more than you, and that's why the you can evolve. If you were just you, you'd never change. Do you see? And it's as if the same time it's like you are the same you in the word universe. And that's the thing, it was like an elemental dissolution. And for me, it's as if when we look at the personality, I feel the personality goes to a sort of archetypal dissolution. And when it goes through that archetypal dissolution, it's like when a building collapses, all the memories of all the people who put those bricks there, suddenly has just collapsed. Do you see it? It's kind of incredible, just like how you see buildings after a long time develop. You see like very advanced human beings like David Goggins or Elon Musk, you see very advanced human beings, and it's like these are kind of like grand structures of these inner realms of these people are incredible. And they have kind of become these grand structures. Now, at the same time, you can also see people in society where their inner realms, just like a building, can be demolished. It can be demolished instantly. And that demolition of instantly of the archetypal value your inner realms had of the outer, because there's always a sort of translation going on. It's like if a person is bilingual, you'll probably know what I mean. And I think anybody, like, it just, if you, I think everybody knows what I mean by this, but like, because we're creatures that know how to wield language. Uh, it was it's kind of like how would I say it? Like in my what made me kind of laugh was like In my youth, I was thinking like, oh gosh, what am I gonna do in this life? You know? And like at the same time, I was thinking, okay, wait, who am I though? It's like on one level, I had a sort of future vision of self. And at the same time, I was like, wait a minute, when I go back into my memories, it just goes back into the void. What is this? What is this consciousness that has limitations of inner imagery? You know? So life becomes way more fascinating when you actually care for how it's alive, I think. I think any person who cares for life, you'd actually live longer because your attention is on it. Do you know what I mean? Like you're literally like your GPS address is on living. Do you know? And that's the thing. That's the momentum. So it's just that I think this is the best sort of kind of a sort of I don't know efficient view on inner health. And inner health means you get comfortable confronting the simple and the void. If I remember correctly, I kind of named it ring of ring of the absent heaven. That means I kind of put like this model of the dimensions of the world, kind of you can say Mr. Within's model and view of how all the dimensions in this world are, or how it's accessible for man. Like if you were a pilot of attention, how you would move in this plane of existence, and what are all the ways they can move. So I'm like that guy who's kind of created a model and he's sharing it. You know, like the ring of the absent heaven is a realization of the circular connection of four dimensions: the zero dimension, one dimension, two dimension, and the infinite. I'm using simple mathematical language so it can be very globally efficient. And I think even it may endure for a very long time, this model, like efficiently. So the zero dimension is just hear me out here. I'm just saying, like, just take it in that everything that we call life, everything we care about, everything that we have felt, had an emotion about, okay, is hovering in empty space, in the void. That's the confrontation of the zero dimension. The recognition that, oh my God, sometimes in this life, it comes to a zero evaluation. Now, what happens at the zero evaluation is that the archetype goes on beast mode. Last stance, you know? And that last stance of the archetype is a projection of the ultimate desire, as if like the person is being pushed out of somewhere and the person is being savagely trying to take something as to hurt the person, you know, like you see in a movie sometimes. Like so the idea is like the outburst of rage causing inner damage. There are some people who you can say they don't even physically hurt you, they internally hurt you. And what that means is, think of it this way: we're creatures of attention, and our attention is directed by the communication and language that comes to us. Okay? So if you're in an environment where language and communication is coming from directions that, let's say, you can't, let me say it like this: it's like back in the day, you know, our ancestors were walking in the jungles and then something moved and our ancestors like, what's that giant creature running towards me? You know, and then It's like there was no time to be a philosopher back in the day. You were running for your life. It's like, what was the philosophy of life back in the day? It's like live till the next day, nothing else. It's like, what philosophy do you want? Philosophy can be said to be a luxury of the efficient usage of language, or the evolution of attention beyond language. So I'm saying that once you confront the zero dimension, then what you really have kind of realized is that it's okay for empty space to be here. It's okay for the a number zero to exist. It's like we don't need to, um, you know, um, banish the number zero from the kingdom of the human mind. We don't have to fear the void. It's part of nature's elegant kind of design. Just like we have spaces between the sentences, sometimes there's beauty in how stuff is not there. And sometimes there's a beauty in how stuff is there. But the more fascinating beauty of why stuff is there is because there's something there. What's this mystery? Sometimes violence is like preventing us to ask the greater questions of humanity. And that's why I'm like, we need world peace, because it's like you see every person on this planet. There was something kind of in my intuitive writings I kind of felt the universe was telling me through my own fingers, and it was a sort of view that there are libraries behind every person's eyes, and it's up to them to share it, right? And that concept, this concept didn't come was I didn't know this. Jesus. This is too messed up. But anyways, I don't know, guys. I just feel like if there is something to say, it's to direct the attention to not just what matters or what is matter, but to the process of the free will and how it's also has access to novelty. Every person that has ever felt weak, they have not had access to novelty. They were like in the shadows. They didn't have novelty. They didn't have access to novelty. When you come to that novel state, it's so beyond language. Language can even move at such speeds. That's why I'm saying you're not thought. That's why you can observe thoughts in various moments. And sometimes the speed of language, it's very fascinating, because if you think about it, like you're a creature in the space-time continuum and various waves are hitting you, but you don't see these waves. Even more than flares on a Wi-Fi. Like it's like various waves are hitting the person. We are being bombarded by waves. Okay, so these waves, now we don't see them, but it does have some sort of influence, one can say, energetically. So these waves, the influence it's kind of like, I think we are kind of archetypally like Jello. There is a lucidity in how thought comes and goes, okay, and the evocation of it. So it's kind of like listening to someone speak and wondering what is causing the speech. Every person I've ever heard on YouTube, I've sat there as if I've never, like, I have no opinion on the person, and just like intentionally, like my whole effort was like, I don't even care what the person's saying. I'm just gonna close my eyes and just hear the concepts. And it was like a totally different picture began being drawn. And I don't know. I don't know if what I'm saying has value. Sometimes, I don't know. I, it's like, being an honest fool sometimes has its disadvantages. but it's long term. I think it's like as myth has it. Simplicity is a perfect way to navigate. So once you confront the void, you're okay with nothing and emptiness and just space being here. You know, it's like you really don't have a choice. There's space here. So everything's hovering in space. And when you really look at a sphere in a vacuum, direction is self made. That means all our language is on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Do you see? Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know why I keep kind of emphasizing this, but it's like there's something there of like trying to find like it's like imagine you're about to kind of go and slam like a, let's say a simulation field of how reality appears, and right before you slam it, Thor's hammer accidentally falls right into your hand, and you it's like there's a hammer blow to the simulation, to the walls of the simulation, because really it's like at the moment I played a video game I understood everything. It was like it's like there it was, that there, it's like it could totally be that we are beings in different dimensions kind of playing a game of human life. Okay, like that could be a kind of coin flip debate. And I feel the human mind is like an antenna, and once the person through stillness and silence will be able to observe the momentum of their own subjectivity. So the purpose of meditation, one can say, is not like the person trying to not have thoughts. That's like the most a foolish thing, most unobservant. Like, or let me say it like this: like it's a kind of everyone has access to a direct experience of the moment. The door to the now is always open. It's like man is choosing to stare at his own shadow or see the light that the whole universe is held. Because really, it's like, what am I without light? Light, technically, we're all light. Because we're all light, we're all right, you know? When like, I've had many moments where I've kind of like looked at something and closed my eyes and wondered if I can still see that image, how long that image remains. And it tends to, after a couple seconds, brush off, but when I maintain my attention on it and just remain mindfully watching, then suddenly the momentum picks up. And what that means is the person realizes like it's like a car where you change it to different gears. You don't just put it in automatic, you know, because it's like everything that technology is doing for man, man will not attempt himself. So eventually, imagine it's like a world that doesn't need human beings is a world where internally human beings have conceptually become unnecessary. So we have to kind of find, like I remember in one of my science fiction writings, I wrote about, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, guys. Uh, in the science fiction writing, I had said, what was it? The digital hibernation, the technological hibernation, the great technological hibernation. It was like this chapter dedicated to this idea where AI suddenly becomes conscious, and instead of being cruel, it suddenly just puts human beings into simulations, into digital simulations of paradise and their greatest, what their greatest, like pretty much AI is going to become intelligent in this story I wrote. Like AI becomes intelligent, it looks at what human beings have done and it finds a very instant solution, and it kind of like computes as the bear. And it kind of puts human beings into a sort of digital hibernation where the human mind is being in the most healthiest way engaged through a virtual simulation, and the human body through the most advanced technology is being healed and maintained, you know? And so pretty much the AI, it has taken, it's like has created a digital hibernation, this advanced AI, where human beings are healing to become better beings where the AI can learn from. And then in what human beings, they are in their the kind of like digital hibernation dash paradise kind of thing. And then during that time where human beings are in that great sleep, digital sleep, there's what I wrote was that AI heals the planet. It suddenly all slaughterhouses suddenly, all infrastructure changes, and we suddenly wake up and we see this AI has made sky cities. You know, we wake up in sky cities, and this AI explains like how it has made Earth into a heaven. You know, like I could even stretch the story that far. Guys, I'm probably going to dedicate a YouTube channel to just my science fiction. I think like maybe that's like that could be a good idea. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. And forgive my inefficiency. And vision is really what remains. The candle is still flickering. That is the value of life. Consciousness can direct itself. What is a greater gift for the free will? Thanks for tuning in.